I wanted to talk about how YouTube atheists, for the most part, just don't admit that there really is no God. They take the high road and say, you have to prove that there is no God. But really, there is no God. And I don't understand what the big deal is, why you have to take the high road. It can't just take the right attitude and tell these people there is no God.
So there's a good reason for that, Glenn.
What's the reason?
Well, I've had my ass handed to me for doing just that. So there are, there are so many different definitions of God, right? And someone's definition can be absolutely non-magical, right? Someone can say, I just think that God is the universe, right? And if that's the case...
But that's not a common description of what most gods that I see people talk about.
Well, I've heard it a lot.
Okay.
I've heard it a lot.
Well, there's no complex being that started everything back at the most simplistic thing. Everything starts out simple and then ends up complex. It doesn't start out complex and then start all over at simplicity.
Well, that's a very different claim than there is no God.
Yeah.
There is no intelligent creator at the beginning of the universe. Maybe some of those YouTube atheists could get behind.
Absolutely. I don't understand why more people don't have that attitude and can clearly see that there is no God. It's not even an option. It's not realistic whatsoever.
Because if we don't meet people where they're at, we're talking past them.
Okay, but it's still, you're not saying the right thing. By even giving them anything that they think could possibly mean that there is a God is wrong, in my opinion.
You need to ask them how they define it, and then after you meet them where they're at and find out what their definition is, then you can address it. But going out and saying that, what you're doing is you are saying that you have this fiat definition of God, and that means that anybody you talk to that does not fit that fiat definition of God, you're going to be off.
Well, anything with intelligence. Obviously, intelligence could not have started with the beginning of the universe. That intelligence had to come way down the line.
Yeah,
someone just...
I agree with you, and I'm telling you that there are people who do not subscribe to that and still say that they believe in a God.
Right, because I have a lot of friends in the pagan, Wiccan, witchcraft community, and none of them necessarily define God in that way as a creator, all-knowing, all benevolent, all of that. When they talk about gods, it's a completely different concept. It's a lot more about nature being embodied by these beings that are limited, that are born, that die. So it's depending on the person, God is going to mean multiple things. So just saying flat out there is no God, even though we don't believe that there is one, it's going to end up talking past the person.
Unless you define the God as physics or science or something along those lines, nature. Anything with no intelligence, you could call God if you want. It doesn't seem like the definition that most people go by, but anything that has any intelligence whatsoever does not seem like anywhere close to being realistic. It's just as false as all the other false claims that you hear about, fairy tales and all that kind of a thing.
Glenn, I'm glad you came to that conclusion, but we're trying to reach as many people as possible. Do you understand that?
I know, but
I get that you're going there. Glenn, I get that you're going there. Not everybody's there. We need to be able to appeal to the people further down the rungs who haven't gotten there yet to be able to talk to them.
It just seems like you're pacifying them, thinking that there even is a possibility of any kind of intelligence.
Oh, dude, I've crawled up the asses of people who have called in who said otherwise. I just let them tell me what they believe at first.
I know. You wait for someone to present proof. We obviously know nobody is ever going to present any proof because it doesn't exist.
That's not being a skeptic.
Right.
If somebody presents evidence, then you need to be open. If someone presents evidence, you need to be open to explore that evidence to determine whether or not that fits the bill. So far, none has.
If someone produces evidence, nobody ever has yet.
Okay, that doesn't mean that somebody won't come up with that tomorrow.
But we both know that nobody will because it's not real.
Yeah, that's not being a skeptic, dude. If someone were able to prove the existence of a God to me tomorrow, I would be. I mean, I don't know what that proof would look like, but if that proof were to become available, I'm not going to...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just being honest here.
I would too, but my
Okay.
point is that there is no proof that exists that or ever could exist because it's not real. But if somebody could possibly magically produce proof, then that would be interesting.
Yeah, and being a skeptic means that you don't make that absolute statement. You're dealing in absolutes, Glenn.
Not absolute, but I mean...
You said no one is ever going to come up with it. Then you say it's incredibly, vanishingly unlikely that that's going to happen. You can say that.
But it's so unrealistic that you can rule it out. It's
in our day-to-day? In our day-to-day, absolutely. But
here's a thought, too. Sorry to jump in.
Go.
When you are... I'm assuming that you've talked to theists and you have engaged in some kind of dialogue where they are saying that this is true and you're saying that it is not. If somebody came to you and their only argument was, well, obviously it's true. It's ridiculous to assume that it wouldn't be true. Therefore, it's true. You wouldn't accept that as an argument from them, would you?
No, I accept only, real proof like you folks ask for. And you're never going to hear any because it doesn't exist.
Right. But what if... My point is that if your goal is to engage in an actual dialogue with somebody, approaching it from a standpoint of you are never going to convince me otherwise isn't helpful. Even if you know in your own being that you're not going to be convinced, approaching it like a combat as opposed to as a dialogue, as a conversation where you say, you know what, I'm honestly looking for this truth and I'm honestly searching for this. And if you have something, give it to me. I want that. Then
absolutely.
Also, can I jump in and add? Glenn,
I would accept proof if somebody offered it, but they just can't. That's all. I just know they can, and they can't.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't even know whether or not with 100% certainty I exist. Do you think I'm going to agree with you on anything past that? Have you heard of the black swan fallacy?
I understand, but I can't imagine that you really believe somebody might call you and give you proof one day. I can't believe in my head that you really believe that that's a possibility.
I'm open to it. And I suggest...
You're open to it. Okay, I'm open to it too. I just don't think
I'm glad
it's
we agree.
realistic and can't happen.
Well, then I think we agree on the more important part. The way we're going to take it in the future is our different styles. But I would argue with you that if you wanted to claim what we're doing is in any way dishonest or afraid, I'm gonna snap back and say, no, dude, it's just a difference of the way we do things.
Yeah, I think it's more the way you do it is to take the high road so you can put the burden of proof on these other people. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that there is any proof to be burdened with because nobody has any and nobody ever will. And
well, if that's the case, then we might as well shut down the show.
No, you want to try to help the people to understand reality.
Agreed.
But you play a little too softball. I think it should be more hardball.
Well, you're welcome to create your own show where you do that. I know that they're more...
I am thinking of doing that. I am actually thinking of doing that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Shoot us an email, mail@talkheathen.com, and I'd be happy to follow your progress. But I think we're going to move on to the next caller.